Hi, I'm Kyle Mashima. I'm a club and high school coach, and I'm also the founder of Rotate 123 LLC, the makers of Solo Stats. I've taught more than 600 coaches about using stats at AVCA, JVA, and Art of Coaching seminars, and I'm also an Art of Coaching volleyball partner. The target audience for this session, although it's been marked as primarily juniors coaches, club, high school, middle school, I think about half the college coaches in the US could qualify for this as well. That's because there are a lot of programs, approximately 1,700, and many of these programs don't have extensive coaching staff. So a simplified stat focus can be extremely helpful in saving time. So as background, most people think complicated when they hear stats. It's just a natural reaction, and I don't think that's a wrong reaction. When I first got started, there was just an abundance of numbers, and it was really overwhelming to figure out what am I supposed to be looking at. I've worked for 10 years to distill this down to a few key stats and make it really, really simple for coaches. So why are stats important? Well, according to Michael Lewis, the author of Moneyball, he says your eyes lie. You tend to pay more attention to dramatic actions and miss the mundane ones. You also can't tell the difference, for example, between a 1.50 passer and a 1.75 passer just by watching. It's just you need too many statistics to get to that point. And then stats provide an unbiased score for your players. So not just for you as a coach, but for your players, it's like test grades in school, right? Instead of saying, Megan's doing great in math, which she and her parents would go nuts about hearing that, you'd say, Megan is passing well. Megan has improved from 1.60 to 1.75 and has reduced her error rate by 5% to 14%, right? Much more precise numbers. And the other part that's important is, while incremental progress is hard to see, it's actually easy to track, and it's hugely motivational. So what age should I take stats? And the answer I always give is all ages. Now, the number of stats you need to take for lower levels of play is much less, but the number of stats you take will increase with sophistication. So here's the steps we'll use. First, we'll determine your level of play. And then your level of play determines the stats you need. Then you need to establish benchmarks by basically statting your competition. And then you set targets for your team, and you work progressively from first contact skills, and then stat each match and adjust your benchmarks as your season progresses. Focus on the stats that matter the most at your practice. So how do I know my level of play? Well, according to Jim Coleman, he said, serve and receive determine your level of play. I've taken this a step further and said, serve receive error percentage determines your level of play. So by simplifying it to one number, it's really, really easy to figure out where you stand. And without good serve receive control, you can't run your offense. And serving well is much easier than receiving well. So what are the levels? Well, I consider beginners to be 50% or more receive errors, and I think you've seen a lot of those games like at 11s. Low intermediate is between 30 and 50%. High intermediate is 15 to 30%, and advanced 8 to 15%. Now, this is based on our huge database of approximately 40,000 teams in Solo Stats, and it's combined with 20 years of coaching. And I've coached extensively in the juniors area, so I have a pretty good sense for what the high intermediate to beginner level looks like. And in general, coaches overestimate the passing ability of their teams by a lot. The other thing we're doing is that my company and the Art of Coaching Volleyball is working on a simplified stats wizard. And it's going to be a mobile interactive product that will help you to get to the exact set of both the stats and the drills that you need to do. And here's an early access link for the product. Now you need to know the stats that matter. And you can see in this chart, this is a high school correlation for varsity teams. The vertical axis, the positive correlations go upwards, and then the negative are downwards. On the left side is more wins, and on the right side are more losses. So you can see that the first two on the left side are point scoring and side out, But after that, what are the specific skills? And they go from aces, kills, receive errors, dig errors, and attack errors. All right, that's the order. Skills that correlate to winning or losing. First, I don't really focus that much on side out and point scoring because they're complex multi-skill actions. I'd rather focus on single skills, which are much easier to improve. And of course, the first two are aces and receive errors, which are two sides of the same coin and are the number one and number two skills, serve and receive. This is followed by kills, and kills become more important at upper levels of play, but not at lower levels. Dig errors, which are the inverse of kills and are right behind receive errors in importance. Now there's some important nuances to the correlations. The first one is that serving errors are not highly correlated with losing. And I think you'll see this sometimes in the college matches where teams will be missing serve after serve, but end up winning. But the aggressive serving is critical to keep your opponent out of system. Serve receive quality is much less important than avoiding getting aced, right? So instead of worrying about getting that perfect pass up, the team really needs to worry about making sure the ball doesn't hit the floor. Blocking is not super important, and attack errors are important and are about number 5 in priority. So there are age and level considerations. Inexperienced players play is mostly serve and receive focus. So ball control is not very good, and there are very few kills. And aces are the way to win. I think you've seen these in these 11s and 12s matches where somebody will sit there and put out like 15 aces in a row. You need to be at a high intermediate or advanced level of play before kills start to outnumber aces per set. So prioritizing skills, learn to serve well first. And the reason is it's a closed skill and it's the easiest skill to learn. And if you learn to serve tough, it will put pressure on your team to receive better. So first skill to learn, really get good at serving consistently, really tough. Then focus on serve receive. Focus your team on error reduction versus pass accuracy, which means the team needs to work hard to keep balls off the floor and not do these, your ball type of things and let a serve go right between two players and hit the floor, right? It's very important not to get aced. Next, attack. Attack needs to be trained in such a way that you can have both growth and control along the way. So encourage big swings on good sets. Take a big swing. If you miss, it's okay, but it needs to be a good set. And then encourage controlled placement or just keeping the ball in the court when you get a bad set. And so you don't want to be taking big swings on bad sets, which is something you need to learn anyway, and it's a good thing to keep in mind along the way. Hitting errors correlate highly with losing, so keep this in mind. Dig errors correlate highly with losing, so get your team to be aggressive digging the ball and chasing balls down. It's much easier to get better at digging than it is at hitting. And I make a simple rule in my gym: someone must dive for a ball even if it's out of reach, otherwise all players on the team must dive. It's a simple way to reinforce a behavioral change, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your team is just throwing themselves after balls. And if they do this a lot, the balls will come up, and a couple points saved will make a huge difference in a close match. Free ball accuracy is something I really think about because to me, this type of precision really aids in having more of an attack. And I like running sets through the middle, even on lower level teams, because it's a really easy set to put up. For example, a 2 set instead of a 1. And it's actually pretty easy for the hitters to hit the ball because the set goes vertically up and down rather than at an arc. And in even bad contacts result in kills. Now, when you focus on middle hits, passers learn the value of a perfect pass and they become part of the offense. They can see that a perfect pass leads to a kill. So beat abandon and teach precision. Now here's the other thing: aggressive free ball return. At lower levels of play, there are tons of free balls, and even at higher levels of play, sometimes I see teams doing really silly, throwing an easy free ball out to their opponent who's going to come back and crush the ball. So first, teach your team to rocket that bump back into the deep corner of zone 1. This is typically a good place because that's usually where the setter releases from, right? And if they make an aggressive move like this and the ball goes out, treat it like an attack and congratulate the player for making a good move. Then if this doesn't work and as teams get better at covering this area, then you might consider dropping it on the 10-foot line right about 6 feet in from the sideline. This is where the setter transitions from the backcourt to the net. And if the setter takes this ball, they're instantly out of system, right? Because she's taking the first ball, libero probably has to set the ball. Or if she doesn't, it might hit the floor if the middle back player doesn't come up quickly and cover this ball. So again, you can turn free balls into a scoring opportunity. Performance benchmarks. Now, in order to play at a given level, you need to understand what those numbers are. So as an example, coaches ask, is 2.0 a good number? And I have to say, well, it depends on your league. It may be great, or it may not be enough. It just depends on your competition. So you must collect stats and determine the levels you need to compete. So let's split these up with stats by level. At the beginner level, you don't really need much. I think really just track your receive error percentage, your serve ace percentage, and your serve error percentage. Those three numbers are really all you need. And if you can get those things dialed in and reduced, your games will be much better. You'll win more matches. At low intermediate, you can move to receive rating on a 0 to 3 scale, and I'll talk about this in more detail in a few more slides. And also this includes error percentage. Serve rating, 0 to 4 scale, and it's really the inverse of receive rating, and it includes error and ace percentage. Now at high intermediate, you can add to the low intermediate stats kills per set and attack errors per set. At the advanced level, you can take the higher intermediate numbers plus attack attempts, kills, errors, successful digs, and dig errors. And then optionally, if you've got more time or got an assistant who's pretty good at taking stats, you can track your free ball pass quality and then maybe track how your block is doing. So here's a sample benchmark. This is my 14U club team from 2019. They were a strong serve and pass team, but a pretty average hitting team. In fact, we were in the gold level in Northern California within the top 12 teams with a 0 hitting efficiency at the beginning of the season. Now, we won a bronze medal at the USA Volleyball Girls Nationals in 14 American, and we beat all our opponents in serve pass. We passed at 179 compared to their 166. And then we average 197 hitting, which is not, which is an okay number, but it's not spectacular. And we lost to 3 teams with superior attacks. So you can see that these numbers aren't necessarily fantastic, but you just need to be better than your opponents. And this is what it's like at an American level in USA Volleyball, 14s. We have a national benchmarks database in Solo Stats, and this is collected through the numbers being pushed to our web reports server. And if you follow the link, it's broken down by college, junior college, high school varsity, high school JV, club 18 and 17, club 16 and 15, club 14 and 13, and club 12 and 11. And it gives you a breakdown of the kills per sets and aces per sets and such for each of these brackets. It'll give you a pretty good idea of how many of these you need at a national level to win. Now let's talk about the receive rating here. And so you really need to, again, calibrate this to your league. And I like to focus on the error reduction. I like to see numbers below 20%, but if your league's not that great, it may be just below 30% is good enough. We'll see. You'll have to stat that and find out. And then receive tough serves and do regular serve receive stat drills. So here are the stat ratings. The left side are the serve. So 0 is a service error. 1, it's an opponent perfect pass. 2 is an opponent pass that can set both pins. 3 is a free ball return from your opponent, and 4 is an ace or a no return. On the receive side, 3 is a perfect pass, so they can run the middle quick as well as the pins. A 2, they can set both pins. A 1 is a free ball return, and a 0 is no return. So those are the ratings for both serve and receive. Now this is how we run our drill. On the left side, we have our passers, and after a player passes, they go up to the whiteboard and write their number. On the right side, player serves and then write their number. Now the coach stands right at a whiteboard and puts up his hand, so he'll go something like this. Okay, so it's a 2 serve, a 2 receive, or a 1 serve and a 3 receive and such. And each player goes out to the whiteboard and writes the numbers down. And the reason for using the whiteboard is that once the numbers are out in the open, the intensity level and the mindfulness, focus of attention goes up dramatically. And I like it actually when players start arguing with me over the score, because now you know they care, and they should if they really want to get better. Now the board looks like this. It's a set of 10 columns, and this is statting 10 actions. So in this case, these are serve receives. And so you just plug the number in. The player will actually do this on their given row. So Sally has a 1 pass and a 2 pass and a 3 pass and so forth. When you get done with 10, then you total them up. In her case, it's 18. And then you move the decimal place over by 1 since it's 10 passes. So it's 1.80 is her average. And then you look at the number of zeros, and she's got 1 0 at the 7th receive. And so it's a 10% error rate. So that's how you calculate the numbers. And again, by having these out in the open, it makes it really, really easy to keep track of what the players are doing as well as maintain the intensity. Now, the other part of this is that as you do these more and more, you can see incremental improvement. And the other thing to also remember is that until you get about 30 to 40 stats, the numbers will bounce around quite a bit. Once you get past about 50 stats, the order ranking on your team tends to stabilize, and you'll have a cluster of the better passers at the top and then the mid-range folks and the people at the bottom. It's important to talk to your players about this because it should be used as encouragement for each player. And once you have your team average for your top 3 passers, you can tell your players, and I see this a lot at like JV levels of play where players are athletic but not very experienced, that they're improving at 0.10 per week. And so, you know, the team average may only be 155 and, you know, Megan may be at 1.0, but if she keeps at it for, you know, 5 weeks, she's going to be in the range of being as good as the average of the starters. And at that point, she can jump on the court. And by knowing that she's improving by that much every week, she'll work very hard to get to that level. And so while it is comparative, it's important that each player is focused on their numbers to make improvements. There are a number of stat apps available. Of course, because we're a partner, we provide 2 main categories. SoloStats Touch, which is a free app, and it's free form. It's very good to use for things like practice statting, where you don't keep track of rotations and scores and substitutions. And then we have 2 match stat apps, which are SoloStats 1, 2, 3 and SoloStats Live. Now, all these apps are free. You can take as many stats as you want. And basically, you pay us for the reporting with SoloStats web reports. And this is a subscription service, and it aggregates all those stats and then turns them into a whole series of different reports. And you can get cuts like by rotation, ranking by a specific skill and player, and a variety of trending reports that we've added to the system to make it much easier for you to figure out, you know, how is your team and are your individual players trending. So once you're in season, it's important to, you know, stat your matches, and the question becomes, you know, what should I stat? Well, at the beginning level, you know, stat, serve, and receive is where you're starting. If you go to ratings, you'll get a little bit more quality there. And then next would be attacks, followed by digs, and potentially free ball. Now, if you're using a stat app, you can actually do a medium effort action, which is to stat the serve and the receive, and then just the end of rally stat. So this is the action that ended the rally. So for example, you know, Megan made a kill, or Becky had a digging error, right? It requires no in-rally stats, which is the hard stuff. And so that this allows you as a coach, if you're coaching particularly by yourself, to be able to watch the action, and then you've got plenty of time to enter the end of rally action because it's after the whistle blows and before the next serve goes up. Now, amazingly, this provides a lot of information since you know your serve and receive ratings and errors, and then you'll have dig errors per set, kills per set, and attack errors per set. And so this can be a guideline to help your team without having all of the in-rally numbers. So now, once your season is underway, you should be statting both your tournaments and matches. And once you have either a tournament or a number of matches statted, then you can start looking at your numbers versus your competition and see where your weaknesses are. So for example, if you aren't passing as well as your opponents, that's where you need to focus. And it's way more important to do this than start working on attacks and other parts of the game, because without that first ball contact control, you really can't stay in the game. However, if you are serving and receiving well, which means that your opponent is not passing as well as you are, then you can now start focusing in on making more kills and also digging the ball better. So as the season progresses, you'll take more stats and you'll adjust your benchmarks. You'll focus in on, the key areas that you are weak, and so you'll focus your drills there. And then provide those numbers to your team so they know how they're doing and what the key numbers are and the benchmarks that they need to achieve. Right? So modify your drills to improve on key weaknesses. So for example, my team had difficulty receiving a serve that came from zone 5 and went to zone 5 in rotation 3. In one tournament, we got killed in this particular serve, so we practiced it like crazy. And when we saw that team again, they weren't acing us anymore, and we had actually pretty good ball control, and we beat the guys handily. So in conclusion, right, let's focus on the key stats and the key touches that matter. And then you want to stat live matches and establish your performance benchmarks. And you want to practice serve and receive extensively, and then the other skills. And then use your time focused on the key skills that will help you win, rather than just a variety of things or the things you like, right? Use your stats to guide your training focus. Here's my contact information if you'd like to reach me. Thanks a lot.